Welcome to Unraveling Success. Here's a little recap of 2024, which was our first year releasing Unraveling Success. And so starting 2025, we are re-releasing our number one listen to episode, which was our episode with Kim Peterson from KPT Mortgage. And so a few things as I reflect back on some of the things that I've learned this year, I think one of the number one things that I learned is that the common thread was that the people that I spoke with were willing to be brave enough to be the beginner. And they were willing to be brave enough to roll the dice on themselves and push past fear. And it reminds me of this quote that I've read over and over, and it is held true in my life that the funny thing about fear is when you run at it, it runs away. And when you practice that on a regular occurrence, it gives you a lot of confidence that you can do things that, maybe in the moment make you feel a little bit scared and nervous. But in a long time, there's just huge gains from pushing past those limitations that we might have internally in ourselves. And one of the things that I was just super impressed with, which also surprised me, is if you'll remember, Kim is the first women-owned mortgage brokerage in Minnesota, which I thought was such a pioneer thing. And I also was really surprised that in the year 2024 that was, still something that she was a pioneer with. So, but I hope you enjoy listening to Kim. I again will put her information in our notes. So if you want to reach out to her, she is a kindred soul and has just been a great person to connect with. Enjoy. All right. Welcome to Unraveling Success. I'm so excited today to talk with Kim Peterson of KPT Mortgage and KP Divorce Coaching. Kim has been in the mortgage industry for 25 years. And fun fact about Kim is she owns the first women-owned mortgage brokerage in Minnesota. Kim is married to Barry and has two lovely children, Piper and Isaac. In her, I love this. She says it's dorky, but I don't think it's dorky. In her free time, she loves to read, go for walks, yoga, spend time with family, and I love this one, bird watch, which is probably the
Pretty
one
dorky.
you were like, it's kind of dorky, but I think it's amazing.
My team teases me about it all the time. It's great
Yeah.
for comedic entertainment.
I feel like I want to buy you a bird watching, like a bird book, so you can flip through and identify them.
Oh, I've
Or
got
have
it.
you seen, yeah, or have you seen the new they're bird feeders that have the video on the
Got one.
front of them? Oh, nice. I love
One of my
it.
girlfriends got
That's
me one of
amazing.
those too.
Okay, I don't have any new ideas then. So so warm welcome today, Kim. I cannot wait for you to share your story. So first I want to start out by jumping in and having you share your definition of success. Because one of the things that I'm really passionate about is kind of debunking what society tells us success looks like and hearing what individuals define as success. So how would you define success?
Yeah, well, I think that has changed a lot in our society, but also personally. And maybe as we grow, that changes with all of us. I don't really know for sure. And I think as I have become more comfortable in my own skin and my own femininity in business as opposed to trying to keep up with the boys, I think that definition has changed a lot. So when I look at success, I don't look just at my career, but I look at my whole world. And the more aligned I feel in my relationships with my team and with my clients, the more successful I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been really fortunate in that my career has allowed me a ton of family time in the last 6 to 7 years, which wasn't always the case. So I've been able to develop that deep relationship with my kids, spend more time with my husband, and really create a family feeling in my work and with our clients. Some of our clients, we are so involved in their day to day and their successes in their lives, and I just love that. So that to me is really what makes me feel successful in my
Yeah.
career.
I love that. Not changing who you are, and who we are is fluid between who we are at work, which is the
Mm-hmm.
same person as who we are at home. And
Exactly.
I don't know about you, but one of my cringe words is balance. Like if someone says work life balance to me, I just want to be like, there's not even such a thing. But I love the harmony. I love the word
Yeah.
idea of harmony between the two, where you can, you know, it's more like fluid, right? We can flow in between the two, and instead of it being like siloed compartments or our head spaces, or we're this person at work and a different person at home.
Right. Yeah. Well, and especially, now I've been working from home forever, right? As a lot of us
Yeah.
have. And one of the things that one of my coaches said to me once that really struck me is when my son used to get frustrated. Mom, we have to work. Why do you have to work? Why do you have to work? And I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I got to do it. I got to do it. I've changed my approach to that. And I'm like, I love my job. I really love it. I love my teammates. He loves my teammates. They're great people. And it gives a whole different perspective to it. And he's like, oh, okay. She loves me. She has time for me, but she also loves her job too. And I want him to feel that because I want him to have that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I I love that, and I can relate to that as well. And for a while when my kids were homeschooled too, I would be like, well, you can come and sit next to me and work with me. You can be alongside me.
Yeah.
I love what I do too, and who I get to work with. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's a really, and what a great role model for our kids too, to see that people love what they do.
Yeah.
I think I've really noticed in like just in general in society, people will allow themselves to stay plugged into areas that they're not supposed to grow. They're, planted
Mm-hmm.
there and then they grow there, but that's actually not where they were supposed to be planted.
Right.
And so I love like being in a family of entrepreneurship, and then also being in a family where their careers are playing on their strengths and that they're bringing joy rather than like, oh, I have to go to work today, and that old kind of begrudged drag yourself to work and plop
Mm-hmm.
yourself in a chair or whatever else you're doing,
Yeah. Yeah. And that whole like, well, this is just what you're going to do when you're a grown up. But you
Yeah.
can't, it's like, no, this is amazing. I got to choose this path. I get to
Yeah.
create what I want it to look like. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, one of the attention grabbing facts about you is that you own the first women owned mortgage brokerage in Minnesota, which, first, congratulations. I think it's awesome. That's a
Thanks.
huge accomplishment. And then my second thought was, well, I had two second thoughts that were kind of at the same time. One was like, did it really take that long for Minnesota to have a women owned insurance brokerage? I mean, I know in the insurance space, like 8% of women are independent agency owners on the independent side, not talking captive. But so that's a pretty small number. But I was really actually surprised to hear that you were first out of the gate. So tell me a little bit about how that came to be.
Yeah, it was about a year ago, just before Christmas, that I approached my teammate Peter about leaving the company we were with and starting our own brokerage. And that's when we started to do some research to see what opening a brokerage looked like, to see who else was out there. And we couldn't find any other 100% women-owned brokerages. There's a couple of husband and wife teams that own brokerages. And Peter is just the most gracious, thoughtful human. And he's like, this is so important. We need to do this. We need to make this 100% women owned. And I was like, yeah, we really do, because it's way overdue. And in my industry, it has always been a male dominated industry. I have I worked for two really strong women in Chicago, but they looked at functioning their business in the same way as the other male leaders did. And that's what I have done too throughout my career. So to really kind of try to take a different approach and try to be a female-owned mortgage company and use my, feminine gifts towards in the way that we operate and the way we work with each other and our clients, I think is different. Mm-hmm. And I know of one other female mortgage-owned female owner in Chicago who has been really incredible to watch her success and growth. Mm-hmm. So there are others out there, but hopefully it can be an inspiration to others. I think that as women, we're learning to lead more so with our intuition and to let that guide us in our choices. Yeah. So that's what I've done in this case, and it has really expanded my awareness beyond what I ever expected it would be when it comes to how important it is to be a woman entrepreneur.
Yeah. That resonates with me so much because when I started Aspire, that my vision was very similar. Like, one of the things I think that can happen with women entrepreneurs, women in business, especially when we're talking about more male dominated industries, like that's insurance as well. And I kind of see when women are trying to find their path and of, who am I? And you're struggling in that like feminine piece in that male dominated industry. And sometimes in moments of confusion or whatever it is, right? Like I've seen it happen. I feel like there's been even times where I could feel it happening in myself, where you kind of start leaning into like masculine or those characteristics that are with that more of a masculine, because that's how you would mimic what success looks like. That's what and but then take over time. For me, I really learned that really my superpower is actually just me being who I am. Like, I am a feminine woman. Doesn't mean I might lead different. I do lead different than like a typical masculine leader, but it doesn't make it less effective, less successful. It's actually a superpower at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I worked for amazing male leaders. I mean, they have created amazing, successful businesses, and I am honored to have learned from them by all means. But I also saw them doing what felt right for them and leading intuitively, and it's different than my own intuition. So I really feel like that could be my highest compliment to them, is I am going to lead with my own intuition in a different way that might work better for some people or it might not. But it works better for me, and that's the alignment piece, right, that we're talking about.
For sure. And that doesn't take away with any different way that another person or a male might lead. It doesn't mean like that it's better. It just means that it's different and you're giving yourself permission to step into your own how. Yeah. I love that. And I was kind of laughing internally when we were talking, because I'm looking at both of our backgrounds, and they're both clearly we have both leaned into our more feminine sides.
It's funny too, because when we decided to open KPT, I was like, okay, when we were talking to our branding people, I was like, I'm really open to a lot of suggestion, but no pink. And our brand is like bright pink. And it was really fun to open into. I'm like, had I known the Barbie movie was coming, I possibly would have gone a different direction. But I love the boldness and the bravery behind it. And I think it speaks well of our team. So it's been fun to embrace that as a person.
I love your bright pink suit. It's kind of, I have a pastel pink suit. We'll have to find a time to maybe wear those at the same time and just totally, you can't not notice that.
Yeah. For sure.
Oh, no, I think it's great. I love that you did that and that you have a team surrounding you that's wind in your sails and that Peter has been such a champion for you to kind of push you outside your comfort zone. So you have been in the mortgage industry. I know you worked in operations until 2013. And then that's when you took the turn to sales and originating, and then most recently started the brokerage. So tell me a little bit about it. So in what got you started in the industry to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, I always had a thing about real estate, and I never really thought I was any different than anyone else until now when I reflect back. And I think, oh, so when the little Saturday newspaper came to your parents' house, you weren't like looking for the real estate section and reading all the little ads, because that's what I was doing. It just always fascinated me. I knew the name of all the realtors in our little town
Oh,
because
that's
their
fascinating.
pictures were on the newspaper. I don't know why, but it was always very fascinating to me. And in high school, I
Hmm.
actually worked as a receptionist at one of the realty firms in our little town, and I got to be around these people that felt like celebrities to me. So when I graduated from college, my dad had convinced me I couldn't be a realtor if I went to college. So
Okay.
I did what I thought was the next best thing, and I got a job in the mortgage company. And I worked for a couple that owned a mortgage company, and they were incredible. They were incredible teachers. They were incredible business leaders, and just some of the most unique, fascinating people I'd ever met. Um, so I learned a ton from them, and I was assisting them, right, with HR stuff and
Mhm.
secondary marketing in the mortgage world, which is kind of a boring topic to most people, but it was a really interesting viewpoint for me starting out. And then my husband at the time and I decided that we were going to spread our wings and move to Chicago, and the business was booming, and we moved to Chicago, and I worked there for 10 years in different operational roles. That's where I worked for some of the strongest business women I've ever worked for, and really learned a lot through that. And then the crash happened. My daughter was one, and we came back to Minnesota. And at that time, the firm I was working for shut down. I felt a lot of loss of control, right, of my own destiny.
Mhm.
But someone in that firm had asked me to help him and be his loan officer assistant going forward. And I said, well, that sounds great, except we're going to move back to Minneapolis. And he said, that's fine. You can work from home. So I've been working from home since my kids were really little, which was amazing because
Yeah.
I had my son with me till he was 9 months old. Before I had to scoot him off to daycare, I was able to run my daughter to and from school and her fun little things and just
Mhm.
kind of mingle it all together before it became like the thing.
Yeah.
But then he chose to go a different direction, and then I found myself again kind of succumbing to someone else's choices and my career being affected by that. So I decided it was December, which is like the worst time ever in our industry to look for a job. So I decided, okay, I am going to try this origination thing. I have never done it. I have always said I'm a backroom person, not a front room person. And I said I'm going to give myself 3 months to figure it out. And that's when we're going to run out of money anyways. So if I can't figure it out in 3 months, I got to go find like a real job. And
Mhm.
I just put everything I had into it. We'd always really lived paycheck to paycheck our whole lives. We lived on credit card debt a lot of our life in Chicago because that's not a cheap place to live. And I just really wanted to find a way out of that lifestyle.
Mhm.
So I decided I was going to give it my all. And I ended up, after 90 days, having like 6 closings on the books. I couldn't believe it. And it just snowballed from there. So a year or so into it, I started to grow my team. And now we just hired our fifth team member last week.
Awesome.
In anticipation of a great year ahead. So it's been a huge learning experience. It's been wonderful, terrifying, rewarding, scary,
Mhm.
all the things, as we've gone
Mhm.
10 years. But
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that I did it. And all those years that some people told me to do it, and I said I'm not the right person for it. You know,
Yeah.
I wish I
It's
had
funny when you push
tried it.
past fear, what happens on the other side of it. I read this quote not long ago, and it talked about how the funny thing about fear is that if you run towards it, it runs away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
there's so much truth to that.
There's also a Brene Brown quote. I think it was her. Maybe it was Mel Robbins that said, fear and excitement actually are the same exact experience in your body. It's your
Oh, yeah.
brain, and they're two different
Yeah, yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So if you just tell yourself I'm excited instead of fearful, you can have a whole different
So
experience.
true. I love that.
Try to
Yeah.
tell them that they don't buy it. But I do think
Yeah.
that
I mean, I have kids that are at the age where they don't think I'm very smart either, that's fine. Maybe, I'm not saying I am, but I want to talk to you a little bit about passion. One of the things um that you had written down, I kind of do a little bit of like a survey and just like wanting to kind of drill down things that we connect on. And you had just said that you had always battled with that concept and just kind of felt like you didn't have value because you couldn't really define what your passion was. And just kind of maybe share a little bit about what your journey was to get to the point where you kind of had that light bulb go off and you realize actually like what makes your light, like the light in your eyes light
Mhm.
up when you talk about it. Like to me, that tells me what people are passionate about. So how did you discover that?
Yeah, I battled with that my whole life, right? I've had people in my life that I've known what they wanted to do since day one, and they're just driven and focused. And I was always really envious of that because I felt like I'm just, yutzing along in my little career, and I'm good at it. That's great, but it doesn't drive me. And one of the gals I worked for in Chicago used to come in the office and she'd go, "We are passionate about mortgages," and I was like, I'm still not feeling it. Um, and it was when I was going through my divorce, I was listening to a lot of stuff. And one of the women that really guided me through a lot of my evolution, I would say, is Glennon Doyle. And she talks about passion in a way that really resonated with me because she says, if there's something that breaks your heart and makes
Mm,
tugs at you, that is the direction for you to go. Go towards it. Like we talked about, go towards the
yeah.
fear. Go towards that thing that makes you feel that way.
Hmm.
And when I started my career, I started really heavily working in the real estate investor sector, which I'm really
Mm,
grateful to because it launched my career. I built amazing relationships. But I personally am not a passionate real estate investor, although I love my clients that are because it is beautiful to watch. So as my career evolved and as we started KPT, I really started to take that into consideration. And I remember telling you about this a few years ago. I was kind of searching for that, right? I was applying to law school and trying to figure out if that was the direction I wanted to go. And I was just trying to find this direction. And finally, it kind of dawned on me is what I was looking for in all of that is a way to help people through this transition of divorce. Because
mhm,
even though I'm in the housing business, that whole housing piece of it was so confusing and scary and hard to figure out.
mhm.
Not to mention the emotions and the logistics and the kids and all of that stuff. And I just felt like, aside from having, I didn't really have a lot of friends that have been through it, not really,
Mhm.
really close friends, um, and like attorneys. I didn't really have anyone that I felt like could guide me through that process.
Mhm.
So when I really started to think about how I wanted to help my clients better, that always was in the top of my mind. And when I realized there were opportunities for me to better serve people, to learn more about how to help people through the process and how to navigate it, it just, like I said, that alignment thing happened with me. And I was like, this feels where I belong. And
Yeah.
then the way that has exponentially grown even since the thought came into my head with conversations you and I have had and ideas we're developing and other things that are happening. I'm like, those things tend to take on a trajectory of their own.
Yes.
And part of why I'm so excited about this year is I know that we're going to reach that community and really finally be able to make a difference and help some people.
Yeah.
Which I love.
That's awesome. And that is what I say about insurance is I'm in a helping profession, which is what you're saying. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, especially one of the things I actually wrote down when I was taking notes about just some of my observations with you was, like, you love to help people through big transitions. Because
Yeah.
even just buying a house, that's a huge transition. It's most people's largest asset. Divorce, that's a huge transition. It comes with that's unpacking a lot of emotions and a scary transition. And so yeah, it just coming along as others is, and so oftentimes the thing that fuels our passion is most fulfilling is when we are being others focused, which
Yeah.
I've really felt is so interesting in like a me world that's so into self-care, which, don't get me wrong, I 100% am on board and believe in that as well. But I think sometimes then it can mute the message of how fulfilling it is when you are helping other people and you're giving back and supporting other people. Like, that is probably some of the happiest moments of my life are
Yeah.
just that, when I'm has
Exactly.
nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Or it does, right? Like it really, that is self-care, is when you do something like that makes you feel so good. Like, why do we love giving our kids Christmas presents, right? It's
Mhm.
love to see that joy on their face. So,
Yeah.
um, I had a girlfriend, and I think I probably shared this with you about a year ago. They had to make a big move to the cities from up north because her son was diagnosed with cancer. And we had been connected in 20 years, but for some reason, all the stars aligned, and I was in a position to be able to help them find a house and
Mhm.
get everything furnished. And that was like one of my most joyful experiences of my life. And it didn't feel like work at all. It just felt like this incredible gift that I was able to do and give them and myself in the process.
Yeah.
And then to be able to reconnect with an old friend and like the bonus of it all.
Mhm.
So I think when you feel those things happening in your day to day life and things that you're doing, that's like the clue of
Mhm.
what really is driving you, what's really creating that
Yeah.
passion.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so speaking of others, tell me, as a leader of KPT and KP divorce consulting, I guess. K yeah. Um, what's been the most challenging thing for you as a leader? Like, in your leadership role, what's been your biggest learning curve?
Well, I feel like I got some I had some opportunity in Chicago to see leadership from a perspective that I didn't
Mm,
appreciate. I was being led and I felt mistrusted. And even though I was told I was trusted, I didn't feel the trust and the empowerment to do my job the way I felt like I could do really well at.
mhm.
So I came into the KPT with a strong belief of empowerment and autonomy. And I feel like my team is successful because of that.
Mhm.
In the very few instances where we've had someone on our team that didn't fit that type of style,
Yeah.
um, that was frustrating and hard for me. And I didn't give a full effort at coaching the people out of that. I just kind of cut our losses pretty quickly. maybe that was for the best. I'm not sure. Maybe there was something for the person in that role to gain by trying to work through that a little bit more. But I think I sell that freedom right out of the gates when I'm talking to
Mm-hmm.
people. And I did with the person we just hired. I'm like, look, this is how we roll. We trust you. We know you're going to do a great job. I'm not going to check up on you and ask you what you're doing because I know you're doing it. And ultimately, in that person's going to decide if they're going to fit into our team or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I don't know that I answered your question perfectly in all of that,
I think
but
it's people and the cultural fits, right? I think that's so oftentimes the hardest part of things, especially when you are leading in a way that's maybe not so common.
mm-hmm,
You know, it throws people, but I also don't micromanage, lead with trust, and we have a lot of freedom in our organization. And it's interesting what that exposes in people.
yeah,
Either you get, really hard workers, loyal, and they are just become like, I mean, I really don't actually have another word, but it almost just feels like your family.
mm-hmm,
Or it is just a really quick weed out. And have found that the longer experience I've had in leadership, the faster I am to just cut the wrong fit. I'll coach behind the scenes, but there's been times where I coached someone for a year and no progress was being made. And then I finally decided to make a decision to release them back into the workforce. Now it's a much faster decision because, kind of circling back to what we talked about earlier, you trust what's inside of you more. You've probably had a few more experiences under your
mm-hmm.
belt to know that, you know, it's better to cut your losses, protect your team's morale, and move on.
Yep, yep. And I
Yeah.
think in that I've proven to at least my team and myself is whenever we've hired off resumes, it has not worked. When we hire off from our sphere, from someone who is we are
Yes.
connected with, when we feel it,
Yeah.
when we feel good
Mm-hmm.
about it, we feel the intuition. I mean, I don't even need to see your
Mm-hmm.
resume because
Yes.
you've got. We already know you're the fit from our past experiences with you. That's really important to me. So no one on our team has ever. We haven't had any success with someone that's coming cold off the street. We've somehow had a connection in some
Yeah.
way brought us together. Like Peter and I, we worked at that little mom and pop mortgage shop right out of college
Yeah.
together. No,
Yeah.
so that connection's been there for 25 years.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yes. I agree with that. The ones that, the employees that we have had that have come from, you know, whether it be Indeed or wherever else, when you're gathering resumes, I care about the person because we can teach skills all
Yep.
day long, but who you are as a person, I
Mm-hmm.
can't teach you that.
Yeah.
So I think the cultural fit comes first. All the other stuff that we do is, if you're the right who,
Yes.
all the other stuff is teachable.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Which is funny because I think I'm seeing a real turn just in society with when we're talking about hiring and building teams and culture. Like, I'm kind of seeing that that's becoming more and more of the theme, and it's less about it's definitely less about like college degrees and where did you
Right.
go to school. It's
Right.
more about, show me who you are type of and even less about experience. I mean, of course there's some situations where experience is really important, but I know for me in the insurance world, like, you can come in as a CSR, not licensed, and we'll teach you, we'll get you licensed, and if you're all I care about is the who.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. We had one of my favorite stories on my team. We had a client who was a real estate investor, a young real estate investor. Him and his twin brother were investing in real estate, and we loved working with these guys. So when we needed to hire kind of an administrative person, I reached out to him and asked if he would join the team. And he was super excited. He was kind of doing a different corporate job that wasn't in his wheelhouse. And this is one of these guys that's passionate about real estate investing.
Yeah.
We brought him into the team, and I put him at a desk, and I had him doing all this busy work. And he not only hated it, he wasn't good at it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you are such a great person, and you're so passionate and invested in this business, but this isn't working. And he felt terrible. So I said, let's go to this networking event tonight. We'll have a beer, we'll relax, and we'll enjoy and get to this networking event. And he's like winning the room over, right? Just making friends, and you guys you got to talk to Kim, something that I'm not great at. Right. And I'm like, Scott, this is it. You were the right person on the right team. We just had in the wrong spot. So then he moved like a business development type role, and that was one of our most successful years. And I just love that story because it is about the person, and it isn't even about fitting into the role. It's about fitting into our team. He was trajectory was, I mean, it was just incredible the way that he influenced our business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the right seat on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It's so true. We've used some tools in the past. There's two that I really like, and they're not personality, like that whole thing. Like you can feel that from somebody pretty quick. That doesn't take a whole lot of, you just lean into some of your gut and you're pretty good there. But I like the ones that tell you someone's how. So like kind of how they're wired as how they're going to do things. Like if they need a lot of time to focus, or if they're okay with interruptions, or they're a taskmaster, or they're super social, or that type of thing. Cause it's helped me nail down their how, so I can set them up to succeed in their role, or to know if the role is going to play on their strengths, or if it's going to just be setting them up to fail. So two that I've used is the Colby Index is one. That one's been awesome. And then another one is Acumax is another one. So that has been helpful on a team dynamics because it helps take the personal feeling out of a lot of type of behaviors that are more, that if someone has a different how than you don't even understand what's behind it. One of the stories that this one was just blaring, like when we did Acumax on this one, we had an agent at the time who was what we call a very heads up communicator. And so I would explain it by saying a story of she would like say she sends an email and she's the person that's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, I don't have an email back from them already. So I better call them to make sure that they're working on my situation. So then she pick up the phone, right, and call, because she's just like, really heads up, right? So you can imagine that. So then the CSR that supported her at that time was a real heads down communicator. So she is like high detail, high focus, heads down, going through what she's going to, needs to get done for the day, prioritizing as things come in. But she's not going to be, responding to every single email. She's going to get stuff done in proper order, and you'll get your stuff done in a timely manner, but it might not be, her hot thing to do at that very exact moment. And she would get so overwhelmed because she would get so much communication like this. And it turned into just kind of not good juju, right? And when we did the Acumax, we were like, oh my gosh, that's so funny, because the CSR was like, why doesn't this agent trust me? Why don't they blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, this has nothing to do with any of you guys on a personal standpoint. This is all about like the natural way in which you guys communicate. Your natural how has nothing, took all the personal out of it. And I love tools that do that because it kind of just neutralizes
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Nobody's offended. Nobody thinks someone's ignoring him or
Right.
doesn't trust him, right?
Not creating like fake, drama between each other that really doesn't exist because we're just doing our best the way that we function.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
naturally do. Yeah, yeah. That story is always just, but there's so many other small examples of different hows like that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, so in closing, would you share some of what you would consider your success habits? So do you have any like daily, monthly habits that you do that just kind of keep you sharp and fresh on your A game?
I do, although I sometimes don't think of them that way, but my morning routine is the same and it has been the same for the last 10 years. I get up and I roll right down to my yoga mat before I even say hi to anybody. I grab my little water jug and I just get in my personal exercise, my stretching, my workout. It's about a half an hour process and I love that time in the morning. I don't do all 7 things that the Miracle Morning says you're supposed to do in the mornings. Maybe someday I will. But that is like my number one. And when I don't get that in for any reason, my whole day is off.
Yeah.
I love that part of my morning. My life with my kids is so much easier now that we have a driver, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to
I'm not
that.
running 2
Definitely.
schools in the morning. But yeah, it's just kind of staying present in the morning. I used to feel a lot of pressure to get right to my computer. And I still work
Right.
out. I still am like, I can take an extra 15 minutes to finish my workout. I can take an extra 10 minutes to drink my coffee, and just in the summertime, I try to make sure I get outside before my day starts.
Yeah. I
Um,
love that. So
I
good.
love it. In the winter, no, I'm not going out.
Mm-mm.
I'm not going to apologize. So yeah, I just think that awakening period, that time to just take a personal moment when we just don't have a lot of those in our life
Mm-hmm.
is super important.
Yeah.
And if I can get to bed every night by 7:30, I'm a happy person.
Yeah. I try to get to bed early as well. Yeah, it is a good thing. 7:30 is impressive. I'm
Well, I'm
very
not
impressed.
sleeping usually, but and I'm usually not in bed by 7:30. But I usually am in bed by 9, and I'm usually sleeping
Pretty quick after.
I
Yeah,
love.
that's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. And I that is one of the things I've been working on for myself personally lately is really prioritizing sleep. I think Adam and I have turned it into like game, like who got a better sleep score. And but I think that it's so important for
Mhm.
us. So good sleep and movement right in the morning and time outside if at all possible. Those are
Mhm.
really good ones. I
Yeah.
love that. So, well, Kim, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you guys for listening on Unraveling Success with Kim Peterson. For information on how to connect with Kim, you can check our show notes, and that will be located on our website. I will have all of her URLs and socials and ways for you to connect with her.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.